Hello, everybody. It's been a it's been a challenging week. Been a great weekend spent with friends and family, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to say thank you for subscribing. I also want to say thank you for sharing with other people. And here at James Detroit, current events from a historical perspective, I'm going to say that what we have is a resurgence of a fascist, even though it's really called Antifa. It's not funny how the anti-fascist movement, Antifa, is actually delivering something along those lines or more along the lines of Marxists. But it's been a constant battle throughout our nation's history, mostly to the forefront during a time of the last 50 years. And time tells the truth as to whether or not these groups, whether it's BLM or the Antifa or the other things that are suggesting they're for a certain cause, what they're really for, and how much of the connection to the Democratic National Party that it actually has, and the CIA and different things. Beyond my pay grade, but I keep reading and I keep trying to critically think, connecting the dots. And when it comes to what the mainstream media wants us to believe is race tension or race wars or this systematic prejudice or systematic racism, and everyone that knows me, I've said it before, I'll say it again, there is one human race. All of us are created similar to God himself. We are made in his image, and we are one human race. There are ethnic differences, there are cultural differences. And it might sound like a very small point to make, but when they start telling us that we are racist or we have race differences, there's a reason for that. And we are one people. If my blood is the same type as anybody from any part of the world, and there's only a certain number of blood types, then the blood works for each other. And it is something that I think it is used to divide so that we can be conquered, especially in the United States of America. When it comes to these things that they want to tell us is a race issue, and I look no further to when I look at cultural or ethnic challenges that we might have, I look to Martin Luther King Jr., I look to Frederick Douglass, Thomas Sowell, Clarence Thomas, Sonny Steele, Walter Williams, Larry Elder, Jason Riley, Peter Kirsanow, and of course, Bob Woodson. I want to know, because when I'm told I have no idea what it's like to be a black man in this country, oh, that's correct. But I also do not want hyperbole or exaggerations. And when I listen to Peter Kirsanow talk about the decrease in crime when there's an increase in police presence in his Cleveland neighborhood, and the moment the Ferguson effect went into practice in Cleveland and in just about every large city in the country, crime went up. And for the most part, predominantly culturally and ethnically, but across the board, poorer communities. The revolution that's going to take place, and make no mistake, there is going to be a revolution. It's not, in my opinion, it can be cloaked as anything. But what it's really truly going to be about is a revolution of the class. The middle and lower classes are going to say we've had enough. We have the foundation, the United States Constitution, greatest man-made document. Law and order, colorblind justice. The founding fathers created something that would allow, especially in free markets, would allow upward mobility of anyone. It also allows for downward mobility if you make mistakes, if you do not do the next right thing when it comes to business or even in our relationships. Crony capitalism and the empire that has become the United States of America, and the deterioration, as Bill Bonner has quoted, our peak was 1999. That was it. Slowly at first, and then all of a sudden, we realized in this century, in this millennium, the deterioration of the United States of America is gaining speed. And there's a lot of aspects of that. The ability for us to be able to protect ourselves through reading, questioning mainstream media, and also being able to move forward with a plan. And maybe that plan is getting out of city centers. I said it last week. This is really a challenge for the city centers that are predominantly led by the Democratic Party, Democratic governors, Democratic mayors in large cities, that they assign police chiefs. County sheriffs typically run for election, but the cities are run by Democrats that assign police chiefs, and the Democratic Party is has so much support from unions. And now you're saying that you're going to defund a very powerful aspect of unions in this country, and that is the police unions. And I think probably the unions go ahead and support the Democratic Party regardless. They did it under Obama, when Obama won his first election with the support of the unions, and then he did not allow them to participate in the same health care plan that the elected officials get to, Congress and the administration. They have a different plan, health care plan, than Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. And the unions were upset for a minute until the union leadership could calm down the union membership, and then voted for him again. And I don't really know where the unions, I think the union kind of got divided based on President Trump being elected, because the unions probably could have been enough to carry Clinton in 2016. But that slowly at first, then all of a sudden, candidate Biden has a challenge when you're talking about, severely underfunding, if not eliminating funding, like in Minneapolis, for law enforcement. You're talking about putting Beto O'Rourke in charge of the gun policies, and he is going to attempt to take every possible gun, not just the AK-47, because one of the things that we know about government is they ask for a small amount, and once the legislation is passed, they're taking more than you could have ever imagined. They can imagine it because the government wants to take everything. They do not exist without taking from us, the citizenry. Why should we think that they're not going to take everything they possibly can? The revolution that's going to take place from the classes is, in my opinion, historically is going to take place for this reason. The Great Society under Johnson provided this country as singularly the most significant catalyst for the riots and not nearly as much peaceful demonstrations in the 60s as we saw the riots in the 60s in the major cities because of the Great Society, especially here in Detroit. You can give groups of people, you can give them things for only so long. And then also by giving them something, you tell them how they can live their lives. And if you look up and research in Detroit and that after hours club that the mayor's office and the police department decided they were going to shut down, and that after hours club was actually celebrating the return of somebody from Vietnam, and they didn't want their party to end. And when you read about how the mayor's office in Detroit had gotten, and the police department as well, a little bit upset that these, after hours clubs were running, and they were going to show a force. Well, after you've given any group of people something and then enforced upon them how they're going to live, and you've really, in essence, lied to them, because when I hear all these Democrats on TV saying we're going to defund the police departments and put it in places that it's much more needed for, education and the other thing. We spend more money in every one of our major cities on education than anybody else in the industrialized world. All of the first world countries, we spend more on education per student, especially in our city centers, than any place else in the world. And yet the results of that, what we're paying for, is somewhere in the 35 to 39 percentile, as far as place in first world countries and results of how we test. And the revolution takes place at a point, and we're very much close to it, at a point when we, the people, have been lied to such an extent. And it's those same people, we are those same people that once you've lied to us so many times and we say enough is enough, if you think that the yellow vests movement in France, that's an afterthought, that's done, I think you're mistaken. I think that we really need to peacefully, we really need to make sure that the 2020 election is a peaceful revolution. And what I mean by that, to give a little bit more example, you want a revolution? Then you elect Donald Trump. You re-elect Donald Trump for the revolution, because that revolution takes place peacefully through the voting process. When it comes to ethnic and cultural issues in this country, this president in 3 years, even with all of the mayhem going on around us, has provided more for those social challenges than the previous president in 8 years. And the guy who's saying, I can fix this, he didn't do anything in 8 years. The revolution takes place through the voting process peacefully, and it will continue to be recreating an opportunity. These people that I just mentioned, when it comes to ethnic and cultural challenges, all of these people believed in the conservative movement. They still believe in the conservative movement. They understand that United States of America affords all cultures, all ethnicities, all bases of faith and religion the greatest opportunity for success. That's a true revolution, because this empire, this decadent empire that the United States has become over the last, really, since 1913 and the foundation of the Fed, and there were different points. Obviously, Teddy Roosevelt, Wilson, FDR, and Truman. Then we had a little break, and then we get back into Johnson. And then, of course, the last 25 years, the laws that have been passed, the liberties that have been lost, a willingness to just say, still live in the greatest country. The revolution that can take place peacefully through the voting process can happen, and I'm praying that it does happen. And something tells me that we continue to believe God is in control, and it's going to be okay. I really do believe that. I'm looking forward to the next time we get a chance to hang out. I know that I've been a little bit general and a little bit vague in some of my descriptions. I've been reading a lot, and I've been wrong a lot from COVID-19. Ends up being, it's just another aspect of control, and we really made a mistake in allowing all of this stuff to happen. I mean, I know what my Democratic friends tell me is that our governor is doing the best that she can. She just cares about everybody and wants to do the best she can. And I believe more now than ever that it was always about control, and it was always about trying to ruin the economy. And you cause so much pain in people's lives, and they ask for help. And I feel like I'm experiencing the battered spouse syndrome when I'm living this life here. And I think that we should we're not going to do it. I'm not wearing a mask, and I'm not shopping in stores that's trying to require me to wear one. And I haven't been in a bank yet that told me I had to, but if I do, I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to have to go do my banking someplace else. A mask is a symbol of control. If you decide to wear a mask because it makes you feel better, or you like wearing a mask, you go right ahead. I'm not signing up to suggest that aspect of control. Think about 2 months ago. Well, think about 6 months ago. Think about last year. Yeah, I'm just going to walk around, hot sunny day. I'm going to be wearing a mask. I'm going to wear a mask into the bank. I'm going to wear a mask into the party store. I just think if you want to, you can. But now you're going to tell me that I'm strange, or I'm being hard-headed because I don't want to wear one. And I have worn a mask at times. I think we'll see some pretty good data come out that masks are actually harming people. I feel bad for the people that are forced to wear them in the stores for a 6-hour shift or an 8-hour shift. Maybe take it off if they take a break, but I feel bad for them. I believe it's hurting their immune system. It's weakening their immune system. And it's obvious about the control, especially here in Michigan. All this concern about the peaceful protests, people with long guns strapped to their body, and they were being called domestic terrorists. And it was all peaceful. I did not like the yelling in the face and almost spitting and whatever else they were doing as you're talking and you're all heated up. Obviously, that could happen. When you're right in the face of the state trooper in the Capitol building, that went too far for me. You need to be able to express yourself a little bit better. But still, every one of the protests in the capital of Michigan was peaceful with armed protesters, because in Michigan, we are an open carry state. You legally own that gun, you can carry it. Now, we also have the concealed pistol license that allows you to carry one concealed, but when those protesters then went out into the streets, there was no concern of the COVID reemergence that the governor expressed just a couple weeks earlier about, oh my goodness, you guys aren't wearing it. I'm going to have to extend this lockdown because you're not. Oh, and by the way, how many more studies do we need to read that asymptomatic people, there is no typhoid Mary in this particular case? Very rare, almost not enough to mention it, that if you're asymptomatic, you're not passing this along. I feel bad for anyone that has lost a loved one in assisted living or in nursing homes. I feel bad because you couldn't visit them. You couldn't have your last visit. I'm not so sure why we would reelect our governor. Now, we are going to have a recall election. There is not a single, if you remember, one of her great quotes is, she's going to fix the damn roads. And yet, our Congress, our state Congress, had a budget planning for the allocation of the money to go towards road improvement. And I will say, prior to our governor even getting in here, my opinion is that there have been some very good road construction completed in this state. And we are a very unique state. We are a peninsula, and we have a freezing and thawing. So we have a physical element to our road that is an environmental issue. We also use salt. We use too much salt. I really believe there should be a sand-salt ratio, like 80% sand, 20% salt. That's just my opinion, but I think our roads would last better, especially if you get a county or a state truck come to a spot where it dumps like a little pile, like the size of a saucer plate or a paper plate at a light. Watch what that does to the cement and or the asphalt. It will literally burn a hole into it. That will be a spot in that area that is some of the quickest to erode. But she ran on fixing the damn roads. We had the budget that was passed that was going to allocate more money. She vetoed it. She went out and basically borrowed the money for our future generations to have to pay for. Less money at a higher interest rate. It's a debacle, the decisions that she's made. And I do not believe it's in the best interest of the citizens of Michigan, her decisions. I believe it is in a desire for a political career that is beyond the governor of Michigan. I think our 2 years almost of her, I'm good. I don't need to see another 2 years. So there is not a single reason that compels me to vote yes for her at this time. And I cannot imagine why I would not vote for whoever is going to run against her. I will vote to recall her. I don't know what you're going to do. I hope that you would question whatever mainstream media is telling you, whatever our reporters are telling us, and find as much of your own information out. I got a clear heart, clear conscience right now. I've shared what I can. It's on my mind. I do hope that your life is getting back on track. Your routines are coming back around. Revenue is starting to flow. If you're running a business, it's open. If you still have a job, I hope you're able to work and even get some overtime. I hope that everything is good, especially your health. Until the next time, I'm James Detroit, and I'm out.